The Thought Fox by the English poet Ted Hughes appeared in his first collection of 40 poems, The Hawk in the Rain, published in 1957. In it, Hughes employs the extended metaphor of a fox to evoke the creative process and the way in which he is seized by poetic inspiration that seemingly comes into the conscious mind from a place which is otherwise inaccessible. The poet is alone in the middle of the night, presumably sitting at his desk, with a blank piece of paper in front of him. The outer world and the inner world of the poetic imagination merge as, ever so slowly and ever so cautiously, the idea for a poem in the form of a fox slinks out of the darkness, a nose here, a footprint there, until, without him realising it, it has crept up on him and entered the dark hole of the head. We are back in the room, but the paper is no longer blank as the poem is now written. The way in which we only ever get a partial sense of the fox at any one time suggests that, for Hughes, poetic inspiration is visited upon the poet in an inchoate, fragmentary form until it coalesces, almost independently of the poet himself, into a recognisable whole. The poem comprises 6 stanzas of 4 lines each, otherwise known as quatrains. There is no fixed metrical or rhythmic structure. Some lines are as short as 4 syllables, while others are as long as 10. Although Hughes does craft the rhythm by patterning words to create lines that are often heavy on stressed syllables, such as till with a sudden, sharp, hot stink of fox, and makes extensive use of enjambment, both within and across stanzas, as well as some use of caesura to modulate the rhythm. There are only 3 full stops in the whole poem, 1 at the end of the first stanza and 2 at the ends of the 2nd and 4th lines of the final stanza, creating an extremely long sentence of 18 lines in the middle, which not only builds an almost unbearable tension and anticipation, but also adds to Hughes's main premise that the poet seems to have little agency over the way the creative impulse, like the elusive fox, manifests itself. There's no set rhyme scheme, although Hughes does employ internal rhyme such as widening, deepening, and various types of end rhyme, with identical rhyme such as now and now, syllabic rhyme such as darkness and loneliness, where the last syllable of each word sounds the same but does not contain stressed vowels, near rhyme such as snow and hollow, and head and printed, where there is a rhyme between a stressed and an unstressed syllable, and half rhyme or slant rhyme, where there is consonance at the end of the words, such as the sounds in lame and come, and the x sound in fox and ticks. Hughes also extensively uses other sound patterning techniques, such as alliteration, e.g. deeper within darkness and starless still, consonants, e.g. sets, neat prints, which he also uses in combination, e.g. I imagine this midnight moment's forest, assonance, e.g. deepening greenness, and sibilants, e.g. sudden, sharp, hot stink of fox, to give the poem cohesion and a sense of muted musicality. Hughes also uses repetition, such as of loneliness and something, both of which appear twice, and of now, which appears 4 times, as well as the polyptotonic repetition of dark and darkness, to evoke the solitary and mysterious nature, as well as the immediacy of the poetic muse at work. The poem is written in the first person, making it intensely personal, as well as being written in the present tense, which gives it a sense of immediacy, as though we are experiencing the creation of a poem at the same time as Hughes's speaker. It is rich in sensuous imagery, relating to sound, where the only noise is the ticking of the clock in the otherwise deathly silence of the night. Sight, with partial and momentary glimpses of the eponymous fox, its eyes, its footprints, and its shadow. Touch, with the cold and delicate brush of its nose on a twig and a leaf. And finally smell, with its sudden, sharp, hot stink. The poem contains echoes of works by other poets, notably William Blake's 1794 poem The Tiger, which employs the image of another predatory creature stalking the forests of the night to explore and question the idea of God's creation, as well as the sound patterning of Gerard Manley Hopkins's 1887 sonnet The Windhover. I caught this morning morning's minion, which perhaps suggests that for Hughes, poetic inspiration does not occur in a cultural vacuum, but is informed by our awareness of works by other people. The title The Thought Fox is a compound word coined by the poet himself and explicitly refers to the fox as a metaphor for poetic inspiration and the creative process. The choice of a fox, with its connotations of being a sly and enigmatic creature of the night, which is only ever fleetingly glimpsed by humans, suggests the mysterious and elusive nature of the poetic impulse. Right from the start, Hughes signals to the reader that this is to be about the world of the imagination, as he reveals, "I imagine this midnight moment's forest." It is late at night, the metaphor of the forest suggesting perhaps a time lacking in clarity of thought, as the speaker's mind is obstructed by the impenetrable darkness of the trees. Note the combined consonants and alliteration of the soft, nasal sound in imagine and midnight moments to evoke a sense of quiet and stillness. The colon at the end of the line indicates that he's going to develop this idea further, as he goes on to assert that something else is alive beside the clock's loneliness and this blank page where my fingers move. The shortness of the line, something else is alive, underlines the certainty that an existence besides himself is stirring, but the pronoun something denotes a thing that is unspecified or unknown, and, in combination, creates an unsettling tone. There's no sound or motion in the room, save for the ticking of a clock and the speaker's fingers as they move across this blank page. Note how Hughes personifies the clock, attributing it with feelings of loneliness, which indirectly describe the speaker himself instead, to create an all-pervading atmosphere of solitude, and how the page is blank, indicating that he has perhaps been experiencing a period of writer's block. The second stanza follows a similar structure to the first in that it presents an assertion, punctuated with a colon. Through the window I see no star, followed by an exploration of his sensing that something more near, though deeper within darkness, is entering the loneliness. The night is cloudy and dark, obscuring the view of the sky. Stars have traditionally been used for guidance and navigation and suggest that the speaker may be feeling that he is lacking in direction. The fact that whatever this something is paradoxically more near, though deeper within darkness, suggests that it is deep in his subconscious, as yet to surface, rather than physically remote like a star. The repetition of the word loneliness serves to emphasize the solitary and highly subjective nature of the creative process, while the verb entering and the colon at the end of the stanza draws the reader on. The as yet indeterminate creature, a approaches until it begins to make itself known to the speaker, first by touch. Cold, delicately as the dark snow, a fox's nose touches twig, leaf. The fox tentatively snuffles at the foliage, delicately evoking the feeling that the fox's presence is almost imperceptible. Note how the simile, delicately as the dark snow, contains an oxymoron. Snow is white, not dark, to perhaps suggest obscurity and shadow where there should otherwise be light. The plosive alliteration of touches twig and the asyndeton of twig, leaf, evoke the quick, as yet uncertain movements of the fox as it brushes the foliage with its nose. The speaker catches a glimpse of two eyes that serve a movement, that now and again now and now and now sets neat prints into the snow between the trees. The repetition of the adverb now in combination with the caesurae created by the commas evoke how the fox, with initial hesitation but gradually increasing confidence, approaches the speaker. Note how the enjambment across the stanza break enhances this sense of movement as it cautiously begins to break free of the confines of the poetic form. The fox's physical form remains elusive to the speaker's consciousness, however, as he is only aware of its effects on its environment, in the form of its paw prints in the snow, the neatness of which are enhanced by the short, sharp, plosive consonants of the t sounds in Set's neat prints. The imprints of the fox's paws on a blank expanse suggest the tentative imprinting of words on a page. The fox, however, still appears wary or cautious as a lame shadow lags by stump and in hollow. But this is perhaps an illusion caused by the uneven terrain of fallen trees and dips in the land, as the shadow is of a body that is bold to come across clearings. Note how the fox once more breaks free of the poetic form, with the enjambment across the stanza break, as it, in an example of form reflecting meaning, crosses the clearing of the blank space on the page between the stanzas. Hughes skillfully uses alliteration here to enhance the fox's newfound daring, with the repeated plosive b of body and bold, and the repeated forceful guttural k of come across clearings. Suddenly an eye comes into focus of a widening, deepening greenness, brilliantly, concentratedly coming about its own business. Note how Hughes uses internal syllabic rhyme here with widening, deepening, a long I vowel sound in widening and assonant E vowel sounds in deepening greenness, the stretched out sounds enhancing the manner in which the eye appears to dilate, its colour becoming more intense. The way in which the eye, in an example of synecdoche, where one small part is taken to represent the whole, appears to be coming about its own business, suggests that Hughes believes that poetic inspiration has a life of its own, that the poet has no control over, reduced as he is to the role of a passive scribe. Till, with a sudden sharp hot stink of fox, it enters the dark hole of the head. Hughes uses sound and stress patterning to great effect here, as the poem reaches an abrupt climax with the fox, as quick as a flash, darting into its den. Stressed syllables predominate and enhance the hissing sibilants found in sudden sharp and stink. The plosive t, d and p and guttural k sounds to not only evoke the speed at which the fox arrives, but also the pungent odour coming from its scent glands, which it uses to mark its territory. The sense of anticipation that has characterised this poem from the very beginning quickly drains away after the first full stop for 18 lines. We are back in the room as it was at the beginning of the poem. The window is starless still. The clock ticks. Nothing appears to have changed apart from the page, which is now printed. The thought fox's job is done. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.